While CTDs, or cumulative trauma disorders, are a medical disorder and treated as such, ergonomics, the fit between people and their tools and workplaces, represents an important ingredient in treatment and prevention. The bottom line is that ergonomic approaches to CTDs can be viewed simply as good management. Documented evidence supports claims that ergonomic solutions are clearly cost-effective because of increased productivity and work output. Another thing to consider is that with today's emphasis on company downsizing, the remaining employees must assume greater workloads and more responsibilities. As a result, they are even more vulnerable to cumulative trauma disorders. Their loss at work, either temporarily or permanently, is becoming potentially more and more expensive to their organizations. For these reasons, ergonomic solutions and programs are becoming an important investment. Commitment and involvement are essential elements of a successful safety and health program. In order to effectively deal with ergonomic hazards, it takes a team effort. Management provides the tools and equipment, but equally, if not more importantly, employees must also look at the situation. Employee involvement is vital to the success of an ergonomics program. Employees' hands-on experience and working knowledge of their jobs, in addition to the special concerns they bring to the workplace, give them an advantage in understanding the big picture regarding potential injuries and hazards at their work sites. Such unique perspectives can be used to make an ergonomics program more effective. Therefore, employee involvement and feedback through clearly established procedures are essential in both identifying existing and potential hazards and in developing and implementing effective methods to avoid such hazards. Too often, workers are unaware of the causes of CTDs, much less understand what to do about them. In fact, many employees do not associate their pain with their work because symptoms may only occur during evening or off-duty hours. When these individuals finally seek medical help, they may be given the wrong diagnosis. As a result, they find the road to recovery takes a lot longer and a lot more money than they expected. The purpose of this video is to help identify some of the potential injuries and hazards that relate to ergonomics and explain how you, the employee, can possibly change certain work habits and behavior to help prevent these type of injuries. We certainly can't list all potential hazards, but let's take a look at some of the more common problems. If your job includes rapid, continuous typing on a computer keyboard, you may touch keys up to 200,000 times a day, which is equal to your fingers walking 10 miles a day. This means you continually repeat small movements to your wrists and hands, increasing the chance of having a repetitive strain injury, or RSI. Awkward posture while keyboarding, poorly positioned equipment and furniture, and typing or sitting in the same position for hours can add to the damage to your wrists and hands. Preventing tired wrists and hands is really a matter of changing your posture and computer work environment. And the best way to do this is to experiment and learn the proper positioning of your wrists and hands. For instance, when you work with straight wrists and fingers, the related nerves, muscles, and tendons stay relaxed and comfortable. Therefore, they're less likely to develop strains and pains that are associated with keyboarding. A straight wrist is a level, flat wrist. This position keeps extra pressure off muscles, tendons, and nerves in your wrist and hand. Whereas flexing your wrist forward or extending your wrist backward can strain muscles and tendons. Equally harmful, twisting your wrist to the side strains nerves and tendons. Keep in mind, your posture at your workstation affects the position of your wrists and hands. The reason for this is that if you lean your body forward, known as flexion, or backward, extension, or if you slouch, then your wrists and hands adapt by becoming flexed or extended too. This means that the nerves, muscles, and tendons that support your wrists and hands become tense and strained. Check your posture. At first, achieving good posture may mean being constantly aware of your posture while at the keyboard. Your goal is to sit up straight and use the keyboard with straight wrists and relaxed fingers until it becomes second nature. It might even be necessary to adjust your workstation. Position the keyboard and adjust the keyboard tray, desk, and chair height so that your wrists and hands are straight while keyboarding. Adjust the screen height so that the top of it is at about your eye level. If you're unable to work comfortably with straight wrists after adjusting your body and your furniture, try using homemade or purchased props. A lower back pad, such as a pillow or rolled-up towel, can help support your lower back. A wrist rest can support your wrists and help keep them straight. A telephone headset helps to keep your head upright and your body straight. A copy stand can help prevent neck or head strain, but it should be the same height as the screen. As a result, your wrists and hands will usually feel fine, even at the end of a busy workday. Some simple exercises are another way to help keep your wrists and hands comfortable and injury-free at the keyboard. While at your desk, you can release tension built up by exercising at least once every hour. Stretching. Place your hands out in front of you. Then spread your fingers as far apart as possible. Hold for 5 seconds. Then relax. Repeat 5 times. Rotating. Rotate your wrists, keeping your fingers relaxed and your elbows motionless. First, turn your palms up, then rotate down. Repeat 5 times. Shaking. Let your hands dangle from your wrists. Then shake your hands, first up and down, then sideways. Repeat until the tension in your hands is gone, or at least they feel more relaxed. Reaching. Lift your arms above your head. With your fingers outstretched, reach toward the ceiling. Hold for 5 seconds. Then relax. Repeat 5 times. Rolling. Use a wide circular motion. Roll your shoulders up and then backward. Repeat 5 times. Shifting. While sitting, move around in your chair. Twist your upper body back and forth. Slouch and slump. Look away from the screen. Dangle your arms. Rotate your ankles. Extend your legs. Lift your feet up and down. Repeat as often as necessary. Prior to beginning a regular exercise program at your desk, it might be a good idea to alert your coworkers as to your intentions. Otherwise, they might think you're having some sort of allergic reaction or nervous fit. From your chair to your keyboard, it takes just a few small adjustments in your equipment and work habits to make a big difference in your comfort at the keyboard. According to certain computer manufacturers, the most common complaint about computer monitors is vision discomfort. Therefore, lighting is a crucial issue for any workstation assignment. Direct glare or a source of light shining directly on the screen is the first thing to address. As a rule, the screen should be perpendicular to the face of any window. If that's not possible, shades might be drawn to prevent sunlight from hitting the screen. Also, the shades on the windows behind a screen should be drawn. Otherwise, the contrast will cause eye strain. Reflective glare, a reflection from any surface, is a little more difficult to control because the screen acts as a mirror. In some cases, the user may need to wear dark clothes to cut down on reflection. To protect against veiling glare, which is the overall lighting level in a room, glare filters can be purchased and placed over the screen. However, check it out and be sure filters do not reduce or hamper the visual quality of the screen. If the office has a lot of fluorescent lights, veiling glare can be controlled by simply removing some bulbs. Additional lighting, such as a desk lamp, can then be provided for employees who request more lighting. Another ergonomic hazard involves back disorders. If you carefully examine your work site, there are several possible risk factors that may be identified, such as excessive repetition or prolonged activities, prolonged stationary posture of the body, trunk or its extremities, either sitting or standing, awkward postures of the upper body, including reaching above the shoulders or behind the back, temperature extremes, restrictive workstations and inadequate clearances, improper seating or support, harmful body mechanics such as continued bending at the waist, continued lifting below the knuckles or above the shoulders, or twisting at the waist while lifting, lifting heavy objects or objects of abnormal sizes, lack of adjustable chairs, footrests, and body supports, work surfaces at workstations, or slippery footing. Ergonomic hazards are prevented mainly by the effective design of a job or job site and the tools or equipment used in that job. Based on information gathered in an initial worksite analysis, procedures can be established to correct or control ergonomic hazards. For example, when redesigning a workstation, attention should be given to prolonged or sustained exertion of a body part without movement, hard or sharp edges, contact with thermally conducting work surfaces. Proper seating and machine control should be reachable and equally accessible by both right and left-handed operators. Ergonomics. It's not just the buzzword of the 1990s. Rather, it is the future, a program with potential for major improvements in employee morale and health, comfort and productivity. One company has designed equipment to solve many of the ergonomic problems found in today's industrial environment, where parts or other equipment must be maneuvered or manipulated. These industrial manipulators perform a wide variety of tasks to make your job safer and more efficient. Let's take a look at the manipulators in operation. First, this lifting manipulator is lifting a 70-pound bale of rubber from one area to a pallet. You notice how the employee is using safe lifting techniques by bending his legs when he has to bend down. He's now lifting a 50-pound bag to the same pallet. There are different types of clamping devices that can be used to give the operator more versatility in lifting, twisting, and tilting any material. The manipulators have safety devices engineered into the unit, specifically on the clamping device, where if there is no pressure on the clamp, such as grabbing a pipe or other object, it will not close. What happens if you lose power on these machines? Nothing. The built-in safety feature allows the load to be slowly lowered to the floor. You can quickly see how manipulators can improve efficiency, productivity, and most certainly reduce ergonomic hazards created in the workplace. As with most safety programs, employee acceptance increases when everyone actively participates and makes decisions. Based on recent studies, if employees are involved in a new program, such as ergonomics, the potential for success is greater. When introducing ergonomics within a plant setting, an ergonomics task force, possibly a mixture of plant-level workers and management representatives, is one approach to take. However, ergonomic training and task analysis should not be limited to employees. It's important that supervisors and senior managers become involved in the program. This puts the managers in a better position to assist a worker with a problem and understand the concerns for improving productivity, and are committed to finding solutions. In the beginning, the task force concept may present challenges in terms of how information is presented, scheduled meetings, requesting information, delegating responsibilities, and asking for new ideas. However, once these problems are solved, the foundation is laid for a successful program. Initial meetings of the task force will likely be administrative and educational. Small tasks should be assigned to show members what all is involved in evaluating ergonomics. Such exercises allow members to use their newly learned ergonomic knowledge and increase confidence, which will help out during brainstorming sessions. Ergonomics task force results and progress can be phenomenal. However, it's important to investigate and follow up on every employee's recommended change or solution. Not all suggestions can be implemented, but it's a beginning. Success breeds success. Don't be too afraid to start small. After a designated period of time, it's a good idea to review any changes that are made. Determine, in general, if fewer accidents have occurred. Has productivity increased? Have changes taken place in the jobs analyzed? If so, has the change made a difference? A thorough, objective review is necessary to plan future activities and further promote the group's achievements. Sharing information on cost savings produced by task force efforts will help justify future expenditures. Establishing an employee ergonomics task force is a great way to involve employees in safety programming, awareness, and follow-up. Because it affects everyone, a task force approach is a good method for promoting ergonomics. Strict rules should not govern the process. Rather, employees should be encouraged to be creative in finding solutions. Ergonomic programs will be a constant presence in tomorrow's work environments and can only improve when employees are actively involved in the process. Thank you.
Hazards in the workplace are a fact of life. No matter what you do, there's the need for personal protective equipment on many of the jobs you perform. Health hazards, eye hazards, noise, and chemicals. Whether or not you use personal protective equipment is really up to you. If you choose not to, your attitude may be the biggest hazard of all. Personal protective equipment is one of the best ways to protect your own health and safety. You've seen it all before. Eye protection that's uncomfortable, equipment that gets in your way, and thousands of other excuses for not wearing protection when it's required. When personal protective equipment is provided by your employer and its use is required, it's your job to wear it. Maybe your equipment isn't comfortable or convenient as you'd like it to be, but you should convince yourself that your health and well-being are worth the effort. Stop for a minute and consider the risks. What if you lost an eye or hand or became exposed to a life-threatening illness? Is it really worth the gamble? Of course not. Let's take a quick look at some basics of personal protective equipment. Earplugs or earmuffs can go a long way to avoid hearing loss. Adjust your muffs so they're comfortable and don't squeeze your ears. Disposable earplugs must be clean and fitted properly. Never insert dirty earplugs or use dirty hands when putting the plugs in your ears. Of course, earplugs connected to portable radios are not considered hearing protection. Safety glasses provide eye protection from flying chips, debris, and other eye hazards. Goggles protect your eyes from chemical splashes, and face shields are a safeguard when worn over other protective eyewear, such as safety glasses. Handy-dandy straps connected to your safety glasses keep them from falling off your nose, or connected around your neck when safety glasses are not necessary. Gloves protect your hands from chemicals, rough or sharp parts, and a wide range of skin protection. Keep in mind that there are literally hundreds of different types of gloves, each designed for a specific purpose, so select the proper glove for the job. Respirators can protect you against a wide variety of dusts, fumes, gases, vapors, and many other health hazards. One of the most misused respirators in the industry is the dust mask. It's designed only for certain types of dust, but many people believe it's good for any type of hazard. A dust mask cannot be used for spray painting or other types of vapors. Each specific hazard must have the proper respirator that provides protection for that hazard. Proper fitting of respiratory equipment and the wearing of equipment as it was intended is equally important. The old standby. Hard hats protect your head from low-hanging or falling objects. Wear hard hats as they were intended to be worn and never make modifications to your hat, such as drilling air holes in the sides. Each hat is engineered for impacts, and if you modify the hat, you could damage the hat to such a degree where the hat will not afford the designed protection. Bump caps are made of lesser quality plastic and are not engineered for falling objects or impacts. Bump caps are used in areas where there are bump hazards and not falling objects. Many food processing facilities use bump caps solely for the purpose of containing hair and not for protection from impacts of falling objects. Boots and shoes are good personal protective equipment. Even if your job doesn't require steel-toed safety shoes, leather-topped shoes can provide a degree of protection from chemical splashes, petroleum products, and small cuts, bruises, and abrasions. Your shoes should be in good condition, and the soles of the shoes should be slip-resistant. Keep your footwear in good condition and always clean off your shoes before climbing ladders or getting into vehicles. Grease or slippery shoes can create accidents. Chemical clothing and encapsulating suits are used when there are vapor, gas, and other airborne hazards. When you're engaged in this type of work, more training is necessary to make sure you understand what protection is offered and how to specifically use, handle, and store the equipment. When we talk about personal protective equipment, the basic equipment just described comes to mind. But in a work environment, you must consider many other safety devices that could be lumped together with personal protective equipment. Machine guarding isn't just for one individual, but it could be considered personal protective equipment. Electrical safety devices, lock and tag-out procedures, barriers, warning signs, labels, and hundreds of other safety devices should be considered. Safety isn't just one thing. It's a combination of equipment, procedures, and each individual interacting together to make health and safety a reality. Let's say you're spray painting. A proper respirator isn't your only concern. It's how you handle, store, and use the paint. what precautions you take if the paint is toxic or flammable so you don't expose others or create an explosion. It's cleaning your equipment when you're finished. It's reporting unsafe equipment or hazards to your supervisor. It's your attitude that really makes the difference. If you have a good attitude about safety, follow the rules and take the time to perform your job safely. You can't go wrong. Wearing personal protective equipment when it's required is not only for your protection, it makes good sense to protect your safety and health. Safety glasses can be a pain in the neck because you may not be used to wearing them, or respirators can get uncomfortable from perspiration, or perhaps the straps may not fit just right. Tennis shoes may be more comfortable than leather-top shoes. It may be a hassle not to wear safety glasses under face shields when grinding metal. Gloves may not fit properly, or they're 20 feet away and it's only going to be a short job. You're only going to handle a small amount of chemicals, so you neglect to take proper precautions. These are attitudes, but they really don't add up when it comes to you, your family, and to the company. Safety and health are much too important to neglect. When you're required to wear personal protective equipment, then that's the professional thing to do. You won't regret it.
Effective July 5, 1994, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration requires employers to conduct an assessment of hazards in the workplace that may require the use of personal protective equipment and to certify that such an assessment has been completed. This means the company should identify potential hazards in the workplace and what type of personal protective equipment is to be used for each potential hazard. Documentation that the assessment has been completed is an important part of this requirement. The new rule also requires employers to provide training to employees on identifying when such equipment is necessary, how to use the equipment, and how to properly care for and maintain personal protective equipment. Identifying when equipment is necessary should be accomplished by listing each potential hazard in the workplace, awareness of the hazards, and when personal protective equipment should be used. Generally, safety glasses, gloves, hard hats, safety shoes, and similar equipment is relatively simple to understand. However, specific training may be required of employees who work with pesticides, chemicals, and hazardous materials. Additional training may be required for those employees who may be exposed to respiratory hazards, as identification of these types of hazards are not always apparent. Self-contained breathing apparatus, respirators, and most notably dust masks are items of personal protective equipment that require employee training before using PPE. The stated purpose of the new standard is to improve worker acceptance of wearing personal protective equipment by allowing better and more comfortable designs not presently permitted by older rules. The increased training provides information on selecting the proper equipment for the job. Employees who also have excellent experience and expertise in safety matters should provide their recommendations to supervisors and managers when purchasing new personal protective equipment. After all, safety is a team effort. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. Today's topic will probably hit home for many of you. Are you okay?
Yeah, fine. You were saying?
Are you sure? Are you in pain?
Pain? No, just a little discomfort.
Back trouble?
Really, it's nothing.
Tell me what happened.
Believe it or not, I was picking up a certain well-known fashion doll that belongs to my daughter, and my back went out.
I'm not a bit surprised. This sort of thing happens all the time.
Really? Adults everywhere are suffering back pain and injuries due to toys thrown on the floor by child terrorists?
Toys, newspapers, picking up any object can trigger a back injury, right? Wrong. A single event may trigger the pain, but the reality is the injury has been a long time coming.
But I've never had a back problem before.
Maybe not. But there are a lot of things we do that put our back at risk for injury.
When we started working on this, I had no idea I'd be the living example for today's topic.
Me either. I'm sorry you're uncomfortable, but I know the information we have today will help you and a lot of people like you prevent back injury in the future. Today we're here to talk about back injury, and this is something 80% of you out there are familiar with. Yes, it's true. 8 out of 10 American adults experience back pain at some time in their lives. There are a number of contributing factors that keep your back healthy, but in this segment, we're going to take a look at how the back works and some basics about anatomy. When you look at the human spine, you can see that it curves in 3 places. At the neck, called the cervical, at the mid-back or thoracic, and at the lower back, the lumbar. The spine is naturally engineered to not only allow your body to make all kinds of movements, but to also act like a spring and absorb shock. When your spine is in its natural position with the normal curves, the discs within the spine are in normal compression and muscles are in their strongest position. Your back is ready to do whatever work you want it to. When your back is in poor posture or in an awkward position, the compression on the discs becomes uneven and the muscles are in a weaker position. This increases your risk of injuring your back. We don't live in a perfect world. The work that most of us do is going to make demands on the body. The way you can reduce the risk of developing a back injury is by following 2 strategies: stretching and exercise, and improved body movements called body mechanics. It's not hard to incorporate these strategies into your day, and they can make a big difference in protecting your back. I think it's true that we often get so caught up in getting our work done that we forget to think about the impact on our bodies.
That's right. Let's take a look at our first strategy, stretching and exercise, and see how that can help to make a difference.
We all know how athletes prepare for competition, and this analogy is often used to relate the importance of stretching and exercise to the work you do. But for most people, stretching and exercise are even more important. Work demands the most from your body, and exercise and stretching are one of the best ways you can prevent injury and minimize fatigue.
So how do you fit this in spite of your work shift and all the other activities you have at home? The great thing about exercise and stretching is that it doesn't take a lot to make a real difference. Shoulders?
Stretching is important because it loosens and warms up the muscles, helping them prepare for the work you need them to do. People don't realize how important stretching is. You can't expect top performance from your muscles without gradually easing them into it. That's why it's important to stretch and warm up before you begin any lifting or other physical tasks.
The following 4 stretches prepare the major muscle groups you use in your job, and you can do them in about 5 minutes.
The hamstring stretch to loosen the back of your thighs. Never bounce when you stretch. Move slowly, steadily, and under control. The low back stretch encourages flexibility and gets your back ready for lifting. As you stretch, continue to breathe normally and under control. Don't hold your breath. The side stretch works both your side and abdominal muscles. Remember to do the stretch in each direction. It shouldn't hurt. If you feel any pain, try not to stretch quite so far, or make sure you're using the correct technique. The quad stretch loosens your front hip and thigh muscles so your legs are ready for lifting. If you have any questions about stretching, see your healthcare professional. You should hold each position for 12 to 15 seconds and do each stretch 3 times. This may sound time-consuming, but you can easily do this whole series of stretches in about 5 minutes, and it can make a big difference in reducing your risk of injury. Regular exercise can also help. After you've been working all day, additional exercise doesn't sound very appealing. But swimming, biking, or even a short walk before or after work will increase your blood flow and energy level and help your body be ready for the physical activity your job requires. It can also help relieve stress if you've had a tough day.
Again, remember that you don't need to put in a lot of time to make a difference. Stretch when you get up in the morning and periodically throughout the day. Find a time to exercise that's easy for you to fit into your daily routine. Remember to take the time to take care of yourself. Then you'll have the strength and stamina to do your work and come home healthy for the people who really need you.
It's easy to forget what a difference stretching and exercise can make.
That's right. And it can even help prevent injuries with activities that you do at home. And when it comes to back injuries, many times it's not what you do, but how you do it that leads to problems.
That's where body mechanics comes in. Good body mechanics helps your body make physical movements without the stress and strain that can lead to injury.
The idea that you have choices in your work can be difficult to imagine, especially when you've got production goals and deadlines. But one area where you do have a choice is how you do your work, and that's where body mechanics can make a difference.
Body mechanics is based on the principle that your body is designed to make a number of movements, and how you move can make the difference between health and injury.
That's why it's important to be aware of the basic principles of body mechanics and some of the factors that could put you at risk for injury.
There are two basic principles of body mechanics for the back. They are: keep the load close to your body, and keep the natural curves in your back.
Here's how these two principles can protect your back.
Anything held away from your body is heavier to lift, 7 to 10 times heavier. This is called the lever arm effect. And because the object is heavier, the pressure on your back is increased 10 times. You're lifting 100 pounds instead of 10. Keeping the load close reduces the amount of force needed to lift. This also reduces the pressure on your spine. Keeping your back in its natural curves equalizes the pressure on the discs in your lower back. It also places the back muscles, bones, and ligaments in their strongest and most efficient range. The result is less chance of injury. Twisting is another movement that can cause injury. When you twist, the weight of your upper body, combined with the weight of what you're lifting, adds 4 times the amount of pressure on your back. To avoid twisting your back, take a wide stance and pivot with your feet instead, keeping your shoulders and hips in alignment. This will help prevent injuries.
Those are the basic principles of body mechanics. You need body mechanics most at the times when you're at the greatest risk of injury. These include when you're tired, when you're rushed, and when you're short of help. Your awareness of these risk factors is extremely important because that's when you need to stop a minute, only a moment, and think, okay, how can I reduce the risk to my back? How can I make this less stressful on my body? That's how body mechanics can help you avoid injury. Good body mechanics isn't just for on-the-job challenges either. If you remember to incorporate these techniques at home, you'll go a long way toward preventing the cumulative effects that can lead to injury.
Stretching, warming up, exercising, and using the proper body mechanics are some of the things you can do to prevent injuries. But isn't the real trick finding ways to apply these principles on the job?
Finding the best possible way to perform a task can make life a lot easier for your back. Let's see how we can apply body mechanics and proper lifting techniques to real-world situations.
Out in the real world, there are a lot of factors that affect your ability to lift and move materials safely. How heavy is the load? How big? Is it an awkward size? How much space do you have? It doesn't take long to evaluate the situation and to determine which technique will help you keep it close and keep the natural curves. It's important to remember that the most difficult lift is from the floor up to the first 6 inches. You wouldn't think that would be much of a problem, but it can be awkward and difficult no matter what you're lifting. Here's a trick to make it easier on your back. Get down on one knee, hoist the object to your knee, get it close, keep your back arched, look up, and then lift it. Looking up eases a strain on your back by helping keep your back in its natural curves. Another tip is to avoid overreaching. Slide the object toward you, Straddle the corner so your knees are out of the way. Make sure you use your whole hand and not your fingertips, so you have a good grip, look up, and lift. If you find that you're lifting a lot of things from the floor, a good solution is to get materials off the floor. You may need to talk to your supervisor about it, but it's another way that makes it easier for everyone. Another way to prevent injury is to use a technique called bridging. Bridging supports your upper body and the load and takes the strain off of your back. You can use a fixed object like this or simply place your hand on your knee to support yourself. In some situations, you may need to bridge against something for support. Slide the object toward you and then lift. And if you're lifting materials up, you're also going to eventually put them down. Pay attention to how you lower an object. Keep it close and keep your shoulders over your hips. This helps keep the natural curves. And again, you'll reduce your risk of injury. Another trick for safely moving materials is to work off the corners of a pallet or stack of material. Extend one foot slightly, and then you can either lift or lower the object between your knees. Of course, none of these techniques can help you if you're lifting something that's too heavy. Be sure to check the weight of the load and get help if you need it. People often think that it's only lifting that causes back problems, but if you spend all day on your feet, you can get back pain from poor postures. You can relieve the stress on your back by sitting to do some of your own work, or by raising one foot. Stretching periodically throughout the day can also help. If you sit a lot, slumping or leaning over your work puts strain on your back and neck. Try to move your chair closer to the work surface and use the seat back for support. Also, remember to keep your shoulders over your hips. This helps keep your back in its natural curves. And if you have to move an object, try pushing rather than pulling. That also makes it easier on your back. Of course, none of these techniques can help if you're lifting something that's too heavy. Be sure to check the weight of the load and get help if you need it.
So you see, there's a lot you can do to prevent back pain and injury, and it doesn't take a lot of effort.
This helps me a lot, especially the importance of stretching and exercise, and the awareness of good body mechanics, keeping the load close and keeping the natural curves. I just never thought about that before with the things I lift and move. I know I'll do that in the future.
It's also really important to use the right lifting technique for the job you're doing. And remember to take a short break and do a stretch.
With so many people like me suffering from back pain, it's good to know there are some simple techniques that we can put to use to keep our backs healthy.
Chemicals are all around us, in the food we eat, the clothes we wear, in the products we use every day. Chemicals can help us live better lives, but if we don't understand about the chemicals we use, they can harm us. This program is designed to help you understand more about chemicals and chemical safety. It's important to be informed and aware of chemicals and chemical safety. The first and most important step is to stop and read the label. All the basic information you need to know is found on the label. It will tell you the name of the basic substance, what types of hazards there are, what it will do, what chemicals can't be mixed with this particular substance, and any emergency medical information you'll need to know. You'll also learn how to properly store, handle, and dispose of the material. Once you've read the label, you'll be able to identify the type of chemical and the proper instructions required for this chemical. Basically, there are 4 types of chemicals. Let's take a look at what they are. First, toxic agents. These are chemicals that are poisonous to you and can act upon the body very rapidly. Hydrogen sulfide and cyanide are examples of toxic agents. Second, corrosives. This type of chemical is usually an irritant. Corrosives can damage your body by burning, scalding, or inflaming body tissues. Examples of corrosives are chlorine, hydrochloric acid, and, of course, battery acid. Third, flammables. Flammables are the chemicals that burn readily. They may explode or burn if sparks, flames, or other ignition sources are present. Examples are gasoline, benzene, and ethyl ether. And fourth, reactives. Reactive chemicals are those that require stability and careful handling. Some of them can explode or react violently if the container is dropped or hit. Other reactives may react violently if mixed improperly with other substances. Nitroglycerin is an example of a reactive chemical. No matter what type of chemicals you're using, you need to be aware of the ways that chemicals may affect you. If you're not properly protected, you may be exposed to chemical hazards. Here are the ways in which chemicals can enter your body. Inhalation. Chemical vapors, dust, or gases can be inhaled if you're not wearing a respirator or proper respiratory equipment. 2. Absorption. Some chemicals can be absorbed right through your skin and into your body. You can prevent this hazard by wearing the appropriate gloves and protective clothing. 3. Ingestion. You may be ingesting small doses of chemicals daily and not even realize it. Chemicals can be absorbed by food, cigarettes, and drinks. They can also remain on your skin and be transferred to your food if you don't wash your hands before eating. Always be sure to wash your hands before eating and make sure you store food away from your work area. And 4. Spillage. There's always a chance that you may be accidentally splashed or exposed to a chemical. To prevent injury, you should always wear the proper protective equipment according to company policy and the requirement of each specific chemical. Okay, let's review some basic safety tips about chemicals. First, read the label. It will tell you what you need to know about your chemical. If you find you need more information, ask your supervisor for a copy of the Material Safety Data Sheet. The MSDS gives more technical information about the chemical than the label. Second, dress the part. Wear the proper safety protection, clothing, and equipment as required. Third, follow directions. If the label says use only with adequate ventilation, make sure you do so. Never mix chemicals unless you've been trained and authorized by your company. Fourth, know emergency procedures. Be familiar with first aid procedures, and be sure to know where the emergency eye wash and safety showers are located. Also, know where emergency phone numbers are posted. Fifth, be careful. Don't work alone. Make sure there's someone there to help you if necessary. Don't try to hurry or take shortcuts. You just can't rush safety. Don't roughhouse or goof around. Chemical safety is a job for professionals. Sixth, report any suspected problems. If you notice any malfunctioning equipment or any electrical equipment that's in need of repair, report it to your supervisor immediately. Also, report any suspected problems with your chemicals. If the chemical odor has changed or is unusual, don't use that chemical. It may have changed with time. Report anything unusual to your supervisor. Seventh, keep your work area neat, clean, and organized. You'll know where everything is, and you'll be able to work more efficiently. Eighth, store everything properly. Make sure to close containers tightly. Keep flammables in a safe area, and use only the smallest amount necessary for the job. Store compressed gas in leak-free containers, and keep corrosives in containers that won't cause chemical reactions. And ninth, dispose of everything properly. Take as much care in disposal as you would in using a chemical. Safe chemical disposal requires specific procedures, so follow your company's procedures and policies. Chemical safety isn't difficult to learn. Once you take the time to learn all you can about the chemicals you work with and learn about chemical safety, there will be less chance of accidents or injuries. Be aware of safety rules and be sure to follow them. Remember, accidents are caused by people. Therefore, they can be prevented by people. Thank you.
Ken Alden? Just down here to the right. Have a seat here. Okay, you're here for the blood test.
Yes. How long will it take?
Oh, not long. I'll be sending you up to the lab for that. So you've been exposed to blood.
Yeah.
Tell me about what happened. Was it at work today?
Yes, this morning. The guy next to me cut himself. Next thing I know, he's bleeding all over the place. So I ran over and grabbed his arm. Bleed?
Cover it! Come on, man.
We had to try and stop the bleeding, you know?
Did you put on gloves or protective equipment?
No. It all happened so fast. I guess I just didn't think.
Well, were you injured in any way?
No, I'm fine. I just got a little of Steve's blood on me earlier. Then I remember I had this cut on my hand.
And that's why you're here for the test.
So what's the big deal? I got a little blood on me. Do I really need to go through all this?
There are a lot of places people would rather be than here, getting a blood test. No one wants to go through what Ken's going through, wondering if he's been exposed to a serious disease. I spent some time as a nurse for a large industrial facility before I came to work at this clinic. I know how quickly an injury can occur on the work site and how quickly coworkers will rush to help. Part of my job was training people about the dangers of those situations, the potential exposure to bloodborne pathogens, and how to protect themselves. Bloodborne pathogens are microorganisms that cause serious diseases that can be carried in human blood or body fluids. If you're exposed to infected blood or body fluids such as semen, vaginal secretions, cerebrospinal fluid, or amniotic fluid, you could become infected. In Ken's case, he was exposed to an injured coworker's blood. Getting blood on you doesn't necessarily mean you're infected. To become infected, the disease-carrying pathogen must enter your body. There are 3 ways this can happen: through mucous membranes, such as your eyes, nose, and mouth, through a cut or sore in your skin, or through a wound from a contaminated object, such as a needle stick or broken glass. There are a number of bloodborne diseases, but the 3 that are most easily transmitted from workplace exposure are HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, HBV, hepatitis B, and HCV, hepatitis C. HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, is the most well-known of the blood-borne pathogens. What's interesting about HIV is that from a workplace perspective, it really isn't our biggest concern. Your chances of becoming infected with HIV during an emergency response are pretty small. The chance of contracting HIV from a needle stick or cut is approximately 0.3%. From a blood splash in your eyes or mucous membranes, the chance is even lower, less than 0.09%. Hepatitis B and C, on the other hand, cause a lot of concern. Most people aren't aware that these blood-borne pathogens are easier to contract than HIV. Now, I'm not talking about hepatitis A, which is a food-borne illness. You've probably heard of people getting hepatitis A and recovering. Hepatitis B and C are much more serious and difficult to treat. There's a vaccine that protects you from hepatitis B, and if Ken hasn't been vaccinated, he'll get his first dose of the vaccine today. It's important to be vaccinated because hepatitis B can cause periodic disability and even be fatal in some cases. The other concern, hepatitis C, has no vaccine. There's only one approved treatment for this disease, and it's risky, uncomfortable, and not very successful. Early diagnosis and treatment of hepatitis C is important because it's a slow progressing disease. Conditions caused by HCV, such as cirrhosis and liver cancer, may show up 20 or 30 years after the initial infection. All of these diseases have long-term effects, which is why it's so important to protect yourself from exposure. The best way to protect yourself is by following a concept called universal precautions. This means that you assume that all human blood and body fluids are infectious. Universal precautions are well known, so you're probably already familiar with them, even if you didn't call them by that name. For example, dentists wear gloves and masks when working on teeth, and daycare providers wear gloves while bandaging an injured child. And in the workplace, if someone is injured, regardless of how well you know them, you use universal precautions to protect yourself before you help them. The most common way to follow universal precautions is to use personal protective equipment, gear that is designed to keep potentially infectious fluids off of you and your clothes. In the workplace, single-use latex gloves do a great job in protecting your skin and hands from direct contact with blood. If you're in a situation where the gloves could be cut or punctured, place leather or other protective gloves over the latex gloves. Some people are allergic to latex, and in that case, gloves made from other materials should be used. Gloves should be available with the first aid equipment. Gloves are probably all you'll need for most first aid situations. But if you're dealing with a major injury, you'll need more extensive protection. Along with gloves, you may need protective clothing, eye protection, and masks. Eye protection prevents blood from splashing in your eyes. If you've had training in CPR or mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, you know about CPR masks. They have a one-way valve that prevents blood or other fluids from entering the rescuer's nose and mouth. A gown or other protective clothing keeps blood and body fluids off your skin and work clothes. Working with CPR masks, gloves, and other equipment can be difficult at first, so it's important to practice so you know what to do during an actual response. Protecting yourself also means that if you use protective equipment, you need to remove it safely. When removing gloves or other equipment, turn the items inside out to contain any contaminants and place them in designated containers to be stored, washed, decontaminated, or discarded. Disposable gloves are one-time use only, so dispose of them properly after they've been used or become contaminated, torn, or punctured. Contaminated clothing needs to be washed thoroughly in an appropriate disinfectant solution. If your employer provides uniforms, it's his or her responsibility to have them properly cleaned. If your street clothes become contaminated, make sure they're laundered separately in an appropriate disinfectant solution. And don't forget to wash your hands and any other exposed skin after you've been exposed to blood or body fluids, and after removing protective equipment such as gloves. Use soap and water and vigorously scrub all areas. The abrasive action of the scrubbing removes contaminants from the skin. If water is not available, Use a waterless disinfectant hand cleaner. In some cases, you may have to clean the area where an accident occurred to prevent the spread of blood-borne pathogens. Start by wearing appropriate personal protective equipment, and then use a disinfectant such as 1 part bleach to 10 parts water to clean all work and environmental surfaces, equipment, and anything that has been contaminated with potentially infectious materials. Bleach may damage some surfaces, so an EPA-registered hard surface disinfectant may be used. If there's contaminated broken glass, always use tongs, forceps, or a brush and dustpan to pick it up. Never use your hands, even if you're wearing gloves. All regulated waste, such as liquid or semi-liquid blood or other potentially infectious material, and other contaminated items should be placed in closable, biohazard, or red-colored containers. The biohazard label warns others that the waste material may be infectious. There are different procedures for this, so check with your employer or supervisor. If there's a possibility of employee exposure to blood-borne pathogens, employers are required to have a written exposure control plan, which contains the information and procedures to protect employees from exposure and transmission of blood-borne pathogens in the workplace. This includes providing information and training to all employees who may have exposure on the job. Employers also must make hepatitis B vaccinations available to any employee who may have exposure to blood-borne pathogens or who is designated to respond to employee injuries. Talk to your supervisor if you have questions about your company's program. If there is an exposure incident like the one that happened with Ken, employers are required to provide a post-exposure evaluation and follow-up. This includes a written accident report, as well as the appropriate test and consulting with the employee. Confidential medical records must also be kept for all employees with a risk of exposure on the job. For Ken, this means that no matter what happens with his personal test results, the information will remain confidential. The source of exposure is also asked to take a blood test and provide the results, but this person has the right to refuse the test. If the source of exposure does provide test information, it is also kept strictly confidential. If anyone divulges information regarding confidential testing or medical records, including Ken, they will be faced with some serious legal consequences, including termination and the very real possibility of a lawsuit. The effects of diseases caused by blood-borne pathogens can be devastating. Following universal precautions and using appropriate protective gear anytime you may come in contact with someone's blood or body fluids is the first step in protecting yourself. It's also important to remove protective clothing properly and to use work practice controls to disinfect surfaces and dispose of contaminated materials. The exposure control plan used by your employer will also help ensure that vaccinations and other precautions are in place. With so much information and protection available, there's no reason why anyone should have to be exposed to blood or body fluids. Take the time to protect yourself. Those few seconds can buy you a lifetime of peace of mind.
Energy. It powers equipment. It shapes, molds, and heats raw materials. It lights our ballparks and cities. It provides transportation and modern conveniences in our homes. Energy plays a valuable role in all of our lives every single day. It is such an integral part of our lives that we tend to underestimate or not respect its risks and potential hazards if not properly controlled. You wouldn't work at a place of business where you spin the wheel each day to see if you get injured. Yet millions of workers inspecting, adjusting, servicing, or maintaining equipment and machinery take the same risk every day when they elect not to isolate energy sources before placing themselves in harm's way. In this program, Lockout Tagout, we will discuss the hazards associated with the accidental release of energy, proper lockout tagout procedures for attaining zero energy state, proper startup procedures, and special situations you may encounter. In a government study of 152 fatalities involving installation, service, maintenance, or repair tasks, failure to completely de-energize, isolate, block, and/or dissipate the energy source was the cause in 82%, or 124 of the incidents. Failure to lock out and tag out energy control devices and isolation points after de-energization accounted for 11% of the deaths. Failure to verify that the energy source was de-energized before beginning the work accounted for the other 7%. 100% of these fatalities could have been prevented by following proper lockout-tagout procedures. Why is this information important to you? As a person who services, maintains, operates, or works with or near energized equipment and machinery, it is imperative you understand and respect the hazards associated with the equipment you operate and the energy it uses. The purpose of lockout-tagout procedures is to protect you from the hazards associated with the accidental startup or release of energy during service and maintenance. The majority of injured workers can be placed into one of two categories: the inexperienced person who doesn't recognize the hazard, or the experienced individual who, for whatever reasons, doesn't fully respect it. It is estimated that over 100 workers are seriously injured every day due to failure to properly lock out, tag out equipment. Workers can be seriously injured or killed by electrical shock or high-pressure liquid sprays, or by falling or moving parts. They can lose fingers, hands, arms, or suffer severe crushing injuries. These hazards can be controlled by taking precautions to ensure that equipment is de-energized before beginning work on or around it. This means shutting off electrical power, releasing spring pressure, blocking movable parts, and releasing airstream or liquid pressure. Steps must be taken to ensure that the systems cannot be turned back on or re-energized while workers are exposed. You may have been lucky in the past and escaped injury without properly locking and tagging equipment before placing yourself in harm's way. Each time you do it, you increase your odds of being injured. The potential consequences are not worth the risk. The Department of Labor estimates that use of proper lockout-tagout procedures prevents 120 deaths and 50,000 injuries each year. Lockout-tagout related injuries tend to be serious. Workers injured on the job from exposure to hazardous energy lose an average of 24 workdays per incident. Safety is a personal responsibility. It requires a commitment on your part. Your company has established hazardous energy control procedures at your site. You are responsible and accountable for knowing and following them. A key element in ensuring your safety is understanding and respecting the potential hazard. Your safety and that of your coworkers depends on it. Injuries due to the accidental release of hazardous energy are 100% preventable. There are 7 steps involved to control the hazard and reduce your risk of injury. The first step in proper lockout-tagout procedures is hazard assessment and planning. Identify all energy sources associated with the equipment or machinery and assess the potential hazards. This is done by physical inspection of the equipment using, if available, drawings, manuals, SOPs, or your hazardous energy control plan. The equipment may contain hazardous energy in several forms and combinations. Common sources include, but are not limited to, electrical energy from generated electrical power, static or storage devices, such as batteries or capacitors, kinetic energy in the moving parts of mechanical systems, which can be released by simple gravity, potential energy stored in pressure vessels, gas tanks, hydraulic or pneumatic systems and springs, thermal energy, high or low temperature resulting from mechanical work, radiation, chemical reaction, or electrical resistance. Review each source of energy to determine where the lockout device will be placed. The closer it is isolated to the source, the better. Plan the work. How long will the task take to complete? What tools, equipment, personnel, and personal protective equipment are required to safely complete the job? Are work permits or other forms of formal permission required? Does a job safety analysis or written procedures for the task exist, and have they been reviewed? What special circumstances need to be considered and addressed? Hazard assessment and proper planning are essential elements of injury prevention. Communicate the shutdown to all affected workers. Let them know you will be locking out the equipment and why. Statistics show that about 50% of the workers who did turn off the machinery were injured when another individual, who was unaware that the machine was being serviced, reactivated it. Shut down or turn off the equipment following normal procedures. Place all controls and switches in the off position. There is a difference between turning off a machine and actually de-energizing it. Isolate all energy sources to the equipment. Many pieces of equipment and machinery will have more than one source of energy. Remember to use best practices when de-energizing equipment, such as standing to the side and turning your head when opening and closing an electrical circuit. Attach your lock and tag to the isolating devices. Each person working on the equipment must attach their own lock and tag. Lockout-tagout locks should not be used on lockers, tool chests, or in any other manner except for locking energy-isolating devices. Each lockout-tagout device should be standardized throughout the facility and must indicate the identity of the person applying it. If the work being performed requires a number of individuals to work on the machinery, a group lockbox or other device that ensures the system cannot be re-energized may be used. Even locked-out equipment may not be safe if there is residual or stored energy present. Steam, air, and hydraulic lines should be bled, drained, and cleaned out. There should be no pressure in the lines. Any mechanism under load or pressure, such as suspended parts, fan blades, or springs, need to be blocked or released. Once this has been accomplished, verify that zero energy state has been achieved by trying to operate the equipment or testing. Zero energy state exists when all energy in all elements of a machine have been isolated, blocked, and/or dissipated such that operation of any control will not produce a release of energy or movement that could cause injury. After you have verified zero energy state, return all controls to the off position. When performing the maintenance or service work, verify you don't perform tasks that could bypass the system. This is especially important when rewiring or installing new piping. Beware of other risk factors, such as your posture, slips, trips and falls, material handling, and other potential hazards. Follow all best practices and procedures while working on the equipment, including good housekeeping. Once the work is complete, and you are confident the machine and equipment components are operationally intact, guards are put back into place. Inspect the area to ensure all tools, equipment, and personnel are accounted for. Make sure all employees have been safely positioned or removed from harm's way. Confirm all switches are in the off position. In some cases, equipment may start automatically when energy is restored. Remove the locks and tags. Locks and tags are removed only by the person who attached them, and only after all workers are clear of potential harm. Never give your key to someone else or remove a lock for a coworker. Notify affected workers of the equipment startup. Conduct a final visual check. If the equipment is too large or blocks your view, station personnel around it to give you the all clear before restarting the equipment. Special situations you may encounter include shift changes, outside contractors, group lockouts, testing or positioning equipment, and personnel not available to remove their lock. When lockout-tagout of equipment extends over a shift change, workers must make sure there is an uninterrupted continuity of lockout-tagout protection. The incoming shift attaches their locks and tags prior to the outgoing shift removing theirs. An authorized person on the incoming shift must perform their own verification that the machinery is effectively isolated and de-energized. If outside contractor services are involved in equipment maintenance or repair, the on-site employer and contractor must inform each other of their respective lockout-tagout procedures. All on-site workers must understand and comply with the restrictions and prohibitions of the contractor's energy control program. In situations in which lockout-tagout devices need to be removed to temporarily energize and test or position machines, equipment, or components, the following steps must be performed. All tools, equipment, and material must be removed from the machine. All workers must be clear of hazardous points of contact. Communicate to all affected personnel that the equipment is being re-energized. Remove the lockout and tagout devices. Energize and proceed with the testing or positioning. The equipment must be completely isolated and returned to zero energy state as performed earlier before additional maintenance or service work may continue. When service or maintenance requires the efforts of a number of individuals, group lockout procedures may be used. An authorized individual assumes primary responsibility for ensuring proper isolation and de-energization of the equipment and protection of the other workers. Each worker attaches their lock and tag to a group device or lockbox, which ensures the equipment cannot be re-energized until all individual locks have been removed. Individuals attach their lock to the device when they begin working on the isolated machine or equipment and remove it when they leave. Each lock and tag must be removed by the person who attached it. If the person who attached the lock is not available to remove it, an authorized individual designated in the Hazardous Energy Control Plan may remove it under the following conditions. The worker who attached the lock is not on site. 2. Reasonable efforts are made to contact the individual and inform him or her their lock and tag has been removed. And 3. The individual who did not remove their lock has this knowledge before they resume work at the site. Lockout-tagout is a systematic process designed to protect you from the accidental release of energy or startup of equipment. Many serious injuries and deaths can be prevented by following the procedures contained in your Hazardous Energy Control Plan. Taking shortcuts and thinking it won't happen to you only increases your risk. Ambulances are filled with people who didn't think it would happen to them. Don't become a statistic in a future program. Assess the hazards and properly plan for the job. Identify all sources of energy. Communicate to all affected coworkers to let them know you will be locking out the equipment and why. Shut down the equipment using the standard recommended procedures. Make sure all controls are in the off position. Isolate all energy sources and attach your lock and tag. Release and block any residual or stored energy. Verify zero energy state has been achieved. Follow best safety practices at all times. Inspect the area to ensure all tools, equipment, and personnel are accounted for prior to restarting the equipment. You wouldn't attempt to use a time clock like this. Yet a lot of individuals don't think twice about something like this. Ensure your safety. Lock it and tag it.
There's a lot of discussion today about accidents and injuries. Why do they happen? What causes accidents and injuries? The answer can be found in statistics. The insurance industry, governmental agencies, and the National Safety Council have analyzed employee accident investigations over the years and have determined that the overwhelming cause of most industrial accidents and injuries can be attributed to the unsafe acts of employees. That's a rather bold statement, putting the blame on employees. There are hundreds, even thousands of accident causes that couldn't possibly be the employee's fault. Broken machinery, unsafe conditions, and so on. What's the deal here? Well, there is no deal, only cold, hard facts. Let's take a look at some information that will enable you to better understand unsafe acts and how they contribute to accidents and injuries. First, let's explain the phrase contribute to an accident. Let's say an employee is using a machine that's unsafe. Perhaps the machine isn't working properly, but the employee continues to operate the equipment, neglecting to notify the supervisor that the machine is not working properly. The employee is injured. What was the cause? Well, of course, one of the contributing factors to the cause of the accident was the improperly working machine. It should have been corrected. The second contributing cause of the injury was the employee's failure to notify the supervisor so the machine could be repaired. We call this a dual cause of the accident. Two things caused this accident. How about the employee who lifts incorrectly and injures his back? If you use the safe lifting technique, back injuries won't usually occur. The same principle applies when a person tries to lift too heavy a load. It's too much trouble to ask for assistance, so you go ahead and try to lift a heavier load than you should. This, too, is an unsafe act. One of the most widely used tools in industry today is the box cutter. We prefer to call it a finger cutter because that's usually what it does when the tool is used incorrectly. It doesn't make any difference what type of finger cutter tool you use. You must always keep your free hand out of the cutting path, just in case the cutter slips off the box you're cutting. If your free hand is out of the cutting path, you can't possibly cut yourself. Of course, you have to keep your other body parts out of the cutting path as well. Is cutting your hand with a finger cutter an unsafe act? The answer is absolutely, positively yes, without any doubt whatsoever. Personal protective equipment, such as gloves, safety glasses, and other protection, won't do you any good unless you wear it. If you get an eye injury because you weren't wearing safety glasses, is it an unsafe act? Absolutely, positively, without any doubt whatsoever. Forklifts are used in a variety of industries and in a variety of ways, from moving food products to metal casting to moving almost anything. 99% of all forklift accidents are caused by employee actions. Rarely does a mechanical defect cause an accident, particularly a forklift accident. What causes forklift accidents? Speeding on forklifts is one major cause. Forklifts are designed to be driven at a slow speed. The truck is very heavy and has a very high center of gravity. You can't turn or stop quickly if you're speeding on a forklift. Not paying attention also causes accidents. Scraping storage racks, running into walls, doors, or sprinkler pipes. These and many more accidents are caused by the unsafe acts of employees. Unsafe acts can mean many things, such as taking a shortcut, not following company safety rules, disregarding established procedures, or just not thinking about the job you're performing. The word negligence often creeps into the unsafe act arena. How about running at work? Could this possibly be considered an unsafe act? Well, if the building is on fire and you're running for your life, probably not. However, if you're running to do something and you fall down or you knock someone else down, absolutely, positively, without any doubt whatsoever. Okay, you've gotten a fairly good idea about unsafe acts. Is it really an employee's fault every time an accident occurs? Based upon statistics, 85 to 98% of all accidents are caused in whole or in part by the unsafe acts of employees. The second thing we want to discuss is the word fault. When an accident investigation is conducted, fault or blame is not used. Accident investigation is merely fact-finding to determine the cause of the accident. When a cause is determined, corrective action can be taken. If the employee's unsafe act caused the accident, then corrective action can be taken, such as explaining the cause and what action should be taken by the employee in the future to prevent a similar incident. If it were a dual cause and a machine needed to be repaired, then this corrective action would also be taken. One of the most important aspects of accident prevention is just that, to prevent accidents before they occur. The information gained during an accident investigation helps prevent future incidents by determining the cause and making corrections. The next question you're going to ask is, why do I get written up when I cause an accident? Well, the answer is quite simple. In today's work environment, with laws, OSHA, and sound business principles, written documentation is a necessity. Don't look at it as being written up. Look at it as training. There have been thousands and thousands of injuries directly caused by the unsafe acts of employees. And there's been no follow-up, no counseling, training, or documentation on these injuries. The injured employees were shortchanged. Shortchanged because they never did learn what they did wrong. So they probably kept on doing the same thing because their supervisor didn't explain what corrective action was necessary. Any employee who contributes to an accident or injury should be given a safety counseling. This counseling should be written on a counseling form explaining exactly what unsafe act contributed to the accident and what corrective action is expected of the employee. And the employee should be given time in which to correct the unsafe act or behavior. It's not disciplinary action, but training and understanding. Should an employee continue unsafe acts or unsafe behavior, disciplinary action may be warranted because the company is responsible for all employees and cannot tolerate those persons who refuse to work and act safely. It's really simple. If you take safety seriously, follow safety rules, and work and act safely, you won't have to worry about accidents and injuries. If you see another employee working unsafely, remind them of the safe way to perform the job. Teamwork is the key. You have safety rules, job procedures, and certainly you can use your good judgment to perform your job in a safe, efficient manner. Safety isn't complicated, but it does require an effort on everyone's part. For safety to become second nature, you have to practice safety all the time. When you pick up a box cutter, think finger cutter. By associating the hazard to the job, you automatically think about safety and how you're going to perform the task at hand safely. When you operate your automobile, automatically put your seatbelt on, even if it's driving through the parking lot. If you do this every time you get in your car, it becomes automatic. When you lift something, think about those delicate discs in your back and keep your back in its normal curvature. If the object's too heavy, get some help. When you operate a piece of machinery, think about the potential hazards and how you can perform the job without an injury. Operating a forklift? Think safety. Working with chemicals? Think safety. There isn't any job that can't be performed safely. All you have to do is work and act safely, and you'll be an accident-free employee. Most of all, realize that most accidents are caused by unsafe acts or unsafe behavior of employees. Then, do your part by not engaging in this type of activity. Safety doesn't get any easier. Thank you. As we look back on injury experiences, one frightening thought comes clearly in focus. Hand and power tools cause thousands of injuries every year. Everyone uses hand and power tools, at work and at home, but even the simple screwdriver causes over 100 deaths each year. It's difficult to get excited about hand and power tools, but the injury rate tells us safety is extremely important when using this equipment. This program can't possibly cover all hand and power tools and all the safety rules associated with using these items, but the point we want to stress right up front is safety must be exercised every time anyone uses hand and power tools. Safety awareness is of vital importance. So let's begin the program with some basics. A good safety attitude is the first step in injury prevention. If you're aware of the potential hazards, then do something about these hazards to protect yourself and others. Then you have a good safety attitude. Safety behavior is a term used quite frequently, but all it means is a person exercises good judgment, follows safety rules, and doesn't take shortcuts to get the job done. Safety behavior reflects your safety attitude, and it certainly doesn't take any more time, effort, or anything else on your part to be a truly safe employee. It does require you to use good judgment and follow the safety rules established by your organization. Okay, the first rule for hand and power tool safety is to use equipment that is in good, safe, serviceable condition. Regardless of who provides the tools and equipment, either you or your employer, all tools and equipment must be in good, serviceable condition. Defective equipment must be taken out of service and not used until it is repaired or replaced. Okay, let's take a few seconds to talk about knuckle skinners, also known as wrenches. Most wrench accidents are caused by the wrench slipping off the bolt or nut you're trying to turn. Knuckles and fingers bang into surfaces, causing minor injuries. When you're turning something with a wrench, be prepared for the wrench to slip so the injury can be prevented. If you're prepared, you'll prevent the injury. When using long-handled wrenches, position your feet and body in such a manner so that if the wrench slips, you won't take a fall. Another safety tip is to make sure the wrench opening fits snugly on the nut or bolt. A loose fit damages the tool, and it certainly increases the injury potential. Never try to use metric wrenches on inch fasteners or vice versa. Use the proper tool for the job. One of the worst safety violations is to use a cheater bar. A cheater bar is something like a pipe placed on the wrench or tool to give you more leverage. Your wrench or tool is designed only for hand pressure, and when you add a cheater bar, you're exceeding the safety design of the tool. Just say no to cheater bars. Certainly, there are times when you need to loosen a frozen nut or bolt, and hand pressure won't do it. That's when you need to use a heavy-duty striking tool and some penetrating oil. The striking tool is designed to be hit with a hammer and will do the job, so you don't have to use a cheater bar or other hazardous operation to free that frozen bolt or nut. There are basically three types of socket wrenches and sockets: hand sockets, power sockets, and impact sockets. Never mix the different types. In other words, don't use a hand socket on an impact wrench. Each type is designed for a specific wrench, and when you use the wrong socket, you can easily damage the wrench or socket. If you're using an impact wrench, use only impact sockets designed for the job. Adjustable wrenches are very versatile, and they're used for a variety of jobs. One of the major causes of injuries with adjustable wrenches is using damaged wrenches. When the adjustable threads become worn or the surface on the inside of the jaw becomes rounded from use, the tool is unsafe to use. Replace this damaged tool with one in serviceable condition. It may seem like a simple solution, and it is, but adjustable wrenches that are worn out should be replaced. The same basic rule applies to bench vices. When the jaws of the vise become worn, it's time to replace the jaws. You don't have to replace the whole vise, just the worn jaws. Another tip for bench vices is to make sure they are securely fastened to the work table or bench. Power tools and equipment require special attention because when an injury does occur, it's usually very serious. Not much room for error on powered equipment. Before you use any power tool, inspect it to make sure it's in good condition and has no defects or safety hazards. If your power equipment uses cutting blades, bits, or other such attachments, make sure they are sharp and in good condition. Dull blades and bits can cause damage to the material you're cutting and can also contribute to personal injury. Be sure all your equipment is in proper working order. Electrical tools have at least one safety device to protect the user from electrical shock. This safety device is called grounding, and in some cases, double insulation. Let's review grounding because this is the most common protection on electrical tools and appliances. Grounding means there is a third wire in the tool running through the third prong in the plug. There is a grounding wire or connection from the electrical power source or receptacle that goes to earth or ground. In the event of an electrical short or other malfunction of the tool, electricity will flow through this ground to earth and not through your body. If the ground prong is broken off or the ground wire is broken or there is a gap in the electrical ground, the electricity will have nowhere to go except through the person holding the tool. This tells you that it's very important to inspect your electrical equipment for defects before you use the equipment. Some tools afford you shock protection by double insulating the inside of the tool. In the event of a short or other malfunction, the operator is protected by this double insulation. You may notice some electrical tools that only have 2 prongs on the electrical plug. The first thing you should do is check the manufacturer's data plate for the words double insulated. If you see an electrical tool with only 2 prongs and the tool does not state it is double insulated, then do not use this particular tool until it's replaced or repaired for the proper ground. Regardless of the type of shock protection on your electrical tool, it won't help if you're using the equipment near water, liquids, or other unsafe conditions. Sweaty palms or perspiration when using electrical tools is also unsafe, as a wet or moist environment is extremely hazardous around electricity. Another good tip is never carry any equipment by the electrical cord. Yanking cords out of the wall receptacle by the cord is also unsafe. Remove the plug from the wall receptacle by holding the plug, not the cord. When using any type of electrical equipment, always inspect the plugs, cords, cables, and attaching hardware for frays, cracks, cuts, or damage. Electricity is nothing to fool with, so don't take chances with your equipment. If it's not safe to use, don't use it. You've all seen or probably used octopus receptacles and plugs to increase the electrical outlets. When you do this, you're exceeding the design of the wall receptacle, and if you use too much current or amps, you can trip circuit breakers and, even worse, overload the circuit and quite possibly cause a fire. Don't use octopus plugs. Another safety factor around electricity is using 3-prong adapters, such as the one shown here. It has 3 prongs for you to insert your grounded plug, but it only has 2 prongs for the receptacle. The idea is to use this grounding wire and connect it to the wall receptacle, which is supposedly designed to ground the system. These types of plugs are unsafe and should never be used in any industrial environment. In fact, they should never be used in your home either. Okay, let's quickly review some more basic safety tips. The first tip is relating to power drills. All drill bits must be sharp in order to drill safely. Dull bits can damage the material or can break and cause a serious injury. Be sure drill bits are sharp and in good condition. When you're drilling, don't use excessive force. If you need a larger drill or some other type of equipment to do the job, that's okay. But don't try to bully a drill bit into material by using excessive force. When you're tightening a drill bit into the chuck, be sure it's properly tightened, and never tighten the drill bit with anything other than the proper chuck. If you use screwdrivers or other makeshift chucks, you're asking for trouble. When using portable hand saws, always make sure the guard is in place and working properly. Never remove the guard or tie it back. Mechanical guards are designed for your protection, and it's really unsafe to render any guard inoperable. There is always a safe way to use your equipment. Taking chances, such as using your leg as a workbench, is an accident waiting to happen. It doesn't make sense. Everyone wants to complete their job as quickly as possible, but think about the time off from work that results from an injury. The 10 seconds you save becomes 10 or more hours of lost time. When you're working with hand and power tools, your safety attitude and common sense are the 2 most important parts of your job. Your organization can have the most effective safety rules and the best equipment, but if you neglect the attitude part, you're heading for trouble. Recognize the potential hazards of the job, such as sharp edges, falling objects, extreme heat or cold, chemicals, flammables, and electricity. Think through each task before you do it, and know what you're asking of your hands and body. Follow the safety rules, even if you've gotten away with shortcuts before. In the event of an injury, even a minor injury, report it to your supervisor when it occurs, so medical attention can be provided if it's needed. Use personal protective equipment when it's provided and necessary, and think about safety on every job you perform. Hand and power tools are very safe to use if you follow the rules. Follow your organization's safety policies and procedures, and you'll find that your job is easier, quicker, and you'll be a safer employee. It's that simple. Thank you.
According to the National Safety Council and medical research, 20% of backaches are attributed to inflammation such as arthritis. 10% are due to actual back injuries and other miscellaneous causes. 70% result from degeneration of spinal discs. That's right, aging of the spinal disc material causes the most trouble and can cause extreme pain even from routine body motions. You've all heard the routine warnings about bending your knees and lifting with your legs. We see people lifting boxes to demonstrate the proper technique. Those techniques are still correct, but we don't always pick up a box, or the item we want to lift is sitting under a storage rack or other difficult position. Today, we want to explain how the back works so you'll have enough information to make the right choices on how to lift anything safely. We'll also discuss how strains and muscles work so you can prevent these types of back injuries also. There's no magic formula. All you need is a good attitude about safety and are willing to think about safety every time you lift anything. If you'll do that, it's difficult to have an injury. First, let's talk about the mechanics of the back. Each disc is a circular pad filled with gelatinous substance under pressure. The disc looks like a soft hockey puck with jelly on the inside. The disc works like shock absorbers or springs that provide a linkage to the vertebrae or bones, but prevents any sliding of one vertebra against another. The spinal cord is a bundle of nerves in a protected vertical passage behind the disc area. Nerve roots branch out through spaces between each vertebra and go to different parts of the body. The normal range of spinal movement is shown here, while bending forward and backward. You can see the nerve roots are in a vulnerable position because the spinal cord must bend and flex without the vertebrae slipping out of alignment. It is quite easy to wear out a disc with normal movement. As you bend and move, your discs are working, just like the shock absorbers in your automobile. Discs can become damaged through excessive twisting, turning, bending, and when this happens, the disc may spring a slow leak. Now, as the fluid leaks out, you can lose disc pressure. This loss of pressure in one disc can affect the entire linkage. It can happen at almost any age. You don't have to be old to wear out your disc. Back pain sufferers should pay constant attention to posture, standing, sitting, working, even while sleeping. The lumbar flexion or dynamic posture as shown here helps widen the opening that nerve roots pass through and reduce the chance of pinches. Regular exercise is encouraged, which promotes flexibility of the muscles and all the other body parts to keep you healthy. Okay, let's talk about those muscle strains. Actually, when you stretch, ligaments in your back stretch also. Now, if you stretch too far, these ligaments may tear or overstretch. They can be quite painful. Many times we must lift something over our head, so you're going to stretch your arms to reach the object. The best way would be to set the lifted object on a table or other support. Then reposition the object so your arms are doing the lifting, not your back. As a minimum, reposition your grip on the object to keep the weight centered. Arching the back during a lift makes nerve roots susceptible to pinching. Just remember how the discs protect the back and try to make the lift with your back as straight or in a normal position as possible. When you do this, the discs can do their job without damage and the ligaments aren't stretched so far that they'll tear. Naturally, medical research has provided us with some basics about your back to help you understand how the back works. The back works like any other machine on the lever principle. You have a load and a counter load. The load you're lifting and your back balanced on a pivot point or center of gravity. The heavier the load, the more counterweight you need, or some position to help offset that load. The back has a 10-to-1 ratio to the object you're lifting. If an object you're lifting weighs 10 pounds, it's going to take 100 pounds of pressure in your back to lift the object. This puts a lot of pressure on those delicate discs. Add in more weight, more length of the lever, or an awkward position, then you're adding much more pressure on those discs and, of course, the ligaments. That's why you hear safety and medical personnel telling everyone to bend your legs and squat down near the object you're going to lift. This keeps the discs lined correctly between the bones. Get a good palm grip. Don't use your fingertips. The palm grip is designed to make sure the object you're lifting doesn't slip out of your hands. Lift the object slowly to prevent any jerking movements that can cause discs to move out of their proper alignment and bring the object close to your body. This reduces the lifting pressure based upon the 10-to-1 ratio of the lever. The closer the load, the less pressure it takes to lift. You have a good grip. The object is close to your body. Now stand up. You're using your leg power to do the lifting, not your back. That's the standard method of lifting safely, and it does work. Now, how about the more difficult lifting situations, such as trying to lift different types of objects in a less than ideal situation? Let's take a look. Did you notice how he used his free hand to provide support for some of the lifting? Anything you can use to provide additional support is great for your back. How about trying to install a car battery into an automobile? You have to be standing to get the battery over the fender and into the battery case. Can't bend your legs on this one. The next best thing to do is move your legs against the car's fender. This provides good support and assistance to your back when the battery is lowered into the case. Use your legs whenever you can to help reduce the load or pressure on your back. Keep in mind how your discs support your back, the 10-to-1 lever ratio, and that you have ligaments in your back that can stretch and possibly tear. Whenever you have a particularly difficult load to lift, you can use your good judgment and make the right decision how to lift properly. Naturally, if the load is too awkward or heavy for one person, get some help. Safe lifting doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be done safely. Twisting your back while lifting is extremely dangerous. Find another way to lift, because it only takes one wrong way to cause a problem. Perhaps you have been lifting improperly, twisting and lifting and stretching, and your back is still in good condition. Well, that doesn't mean you haven't injured your discs. Perhaps it just means that time, age, and body mechanics just haven't caught up with you yet. Maybe it means you're healthy and just one of those persons that will never get sick or experience an injury. Well, you're fortunate. But we urge each individual to practice safe lifting all the time, at home, play, and at work. Back injuries can be prevented, but you're the only person who has control over your well-being. The most important part of safe lifting, actually any type of job and home safety, is having the right attitude about safety and thinking about safety before you perform each task. Take time for safety because it's important to you, your family, and your job. Thank you.
Caution, warning, and danger. Those words alert you about how to protect yourself.
The word danger especially, that means you need to take extra precautions. Thanks, Jack.
No problem. Just remember to check out that label. It's your closest source of information.
Our producer tells me we got Lisa on the line with another comment. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Chaz. I just love your show.
Thanks. How can you help us out?
That last caller talked about labels and how important they are. I just wanted to mention that some of the labels use colors and numbers to identify the hazard.
Tell us more about that, Lisa.
Blue is for health hazards, red for flammables, yellow means it's reactive, and white is for additional information. Then there's a number within the colored area. That tells you the degree of danger. It's a 4-point system, with 4 being the most hazardous, and 0 means the least. So if you have a 4 in a red area, that means the chemical is highly flammable or explosive.
Sounds like you know your stuff, Lisa.
Of course I do, Chaz. I listen to you every day. Oh, and don't forget the icons. They're symbols that will tell you what kind of personal protective equipment to use.
Thank you, Lisa. Did we answer your questions, caller?
Well, mostly. You guys are great. But I have one more question. What if the container isn't labeled?
That could be a real problem in an emergency. Every container you work with should be properly labeled. If you transfer something from one container to a smaller one, make sure you label it. It's the only way your coworkers will know what they're working with. If you're the only person using the container, like a bucket of floor cleaner, and you'll use it during your shift, then you don't have to label it. But I think it's a good idea to get into the labeling habit and stick with it. Okay, what's next? Got someone with a beef on line 2.
Yeah, this is Tom, and I'm calling to say labels are fine. That's a good thing to tell the kid, but don't even get started on those MSDSs. You'll mess the guy up for sure.
Think so, Tom? I'm not so sure I agree.
You ever read one of those things? I mean, come on.
I found the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheets, to be extremely helpful. They look intimidating, but they do provide useful and detailed information about the product that won't fit on the label.
Looks like a bunch of gobbledygook to me.
Let's take a listen to today's news focus and then see how you feel, Tom.
I'm Chris Edwards with today's news focus, Material Safety Data Sheets. The OSHA Hazard Communication Standard requires that material safety data sheets contain information specific to each product. Divided into 16 sections, the MSDS form is designed for easy information access. The essential basic and emergency information are listed in the first few sections of the form. Information such as product and company identification, ingredient composition and information, hazard identification, including acute and chronic effects and the signs, symptoms, and primary routes of exposure, first aid measures and emergency procedures, as well as measures for firefighting, accidental release, handling and storage and exposure controls, including personal protection, are designed so the information can be easily found by anyone who needs it. The information most employees need are in the first 8 sections, but MSDSs are designed to provide information to a wide variety of people, and sections 9 through 16 provide additional facts. This is where you find the physical and chemical properties of a product, and information on stability, reactivity, and toxicity studies. Environmental impact information, in case of a spill, is provided, as is proper transport and disposal information. Specific government regulations are spelled out here, and any other information pertinent to the product. As always, if an employee has any questions about information on an MSDS, they should talk to their supervisor. I'm Chris Edwards for KHAZ.
So you see, Tom, this MSDS form design lets you go step by step to find the information you need.
Step by step, you say?
It's all right there.
Well, I'll try it. But it still sounds like a lot of reading.
You don't need to read up on every chemical that you work with, but it's good to know the information is right there if you need it. Your supervisor will let you know where the MSDSs are kept at your workplace. Tammy's got something to add. Hi, Tammy.
Hey, Chaz. I just found it was easier for me if I think about the materials in different hazard categories.
I think I know what you're getting at, Tammy, and you're the perfect lead into our commercial break. Stay with us.
If hazard communication's what you gotta know, then Factor is the way to go. FACTOR. Flammable and corrosive, toxic or reactive. Factor in safety when you handle chemicals.
We're back with Tammy, who uses Factor to remember the types of chemicals she's working with.
That commercial really helped me. I work a lot with paints, so I'm dealing with chemicals like xylene, mineral spirits, toluene, and lacquer thinner. They're all flammable, so I know that the hazards are pretty much the same, and so are the precautions I have to take.
Let's talk a little bit about the Factor hazard categories.
Sure. Flammables are materials that can catch fire or burn easily. They can be liquids like gasoline, a gas like propane, or solid. Corrosives are acids and bases that are often used for cleaning, etching, and plating. Strong acids like battery acid are usually liquids. Bases can be either solid, powdered, or liquid.
You need to take precautions with corrosives because they can injure the skin, eyes, and respiratory system. Okay, Tammy, how are you with toxic materials?
Well, I think that anybody who works with chemicals knows that toxic materials can be poisonous to the body. How dangerous it is depends on how much of the chemical you've been exposed to, how often you're exposed, for how long, and the relative toxicity of the material.
It's the amount you're exposed to over time that makes the difference.
Yeah, but it's a problem if it's a chemical you're sensitive to. That means you might have problems, but somebody else might not.
I think a lot of people think all toxic materials are liquids, such as solvents, adhesives, and lubricants. But toxic materials also come in other forms. There are particle solids, such as zinc, or iron oxide fumes from welding, dust from plant processes, and gases, like carbon monoxide or sulfur dioxide.
Okay, Chaz, let me quiz you. What do you know about the last factor, reactives?
Tammy, I'm crushed. How would a guy like me, a major special effects junkie, not know about the Big Bang? Reactives are substances that react violently when mixed with other materials. These reactions often release flammable or toxic vapors or gases. They can also produce heat and oxygen, which can cause a fire or an explosion. Now, in action movies, reactives are always used to get the bad guys.
But they're trouble in the workplace if you don't know what you're doing.
Factor works great for Tammy. What do you folks out there think?
You know what I think? I think we was robbed in Game 6. Who was calling that game? The Three Blind Mice? You just get one of those refs on this show and I'll shove his whistle.
This is KHAZ with the soothing sounds of safety on the job. You want sports talk? Try another station. It's now the bottom of the hour and time for the health news.
I'm Chris Edwards with KHAZ News. As part of an extensive training initiative, experts in hazardous materials are educating American workers on how chemicals can harm you and what can be done to protect yourself on the job. Health problems are the #1 concern. Chemicals can cause anything from short-term, acute problems like rashes or dizziness to long-term, chronic effects like lung disease or cancer. People should avoid breathing, swallowing, or absorbing hazardous materials. Current efforts are focusing on prevention with the slogan, "Don't let materials get in or on you." This is Chris Edwards, KHAZ News.
That's a timely news brief. Okay, callers, fill us in. What are some things people can do to protect themselves from chemicals? Lisa.
You can avoid breathing in harmful vapors or fumes by making sure there's proper ventilation or by using an appropriate respirator if you're working in hazardous conditions.
Nobody ingests chemicals on purpose, but if it gets on your hands or you touch food or a drink, then you're in trouble. Washing often throughout the day, eating in a chemical-free area, and labeling containers are ways you can prevent people from ingesting an unknown or hazardous material.
You can protect your skin with barrier creams or protective clothing such as gloves, aprons, protective suits, or liquid-proof boots. And everybody out there should remember to wear good eye protection, such as goggles or face shields.
You're listening to KHAZ, the place to go when you want to know about safety. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I guess I was wondering, well, nobody's talked about the physical damage chemicals can do if they're not used or stored safely. You know, they can damage equipment and property. Can you talk a little about those factor elements and some things we can do to use hazardous materials safely? Thank you.
Good point. Let's take each category of hazardous materials and talk about safe use. Let's start with flammables. Safe use means keeping sparks and flames away from areas where flammables are being used. That means no smoking, too. Use good ventilation to prevent buildup of flammable vapors. Use containers specially designed for flammables. These containers are unbreakable, have flame arresters, and spring-loaded covers. Keep only small amounts of flammables in work areas and make sure the containers are properly labeled. Make sure all containers are bonded and grounded when dispensing flammable materials. Cover containers when not in use and make sure that any flammable-soaked rags are in covered, protected containers that are emptied regularly. Storage of flammables is also a special consideration. Make sure small amounts are stored in special cabinets. Larger amounts should be placed in specially designed storage rooms, which have controls to minimize the risk of fire or explosion. The phones are going wild here. Flammables must be everybody's hotspot today. K-Haz, what's happening?
Hey, the stuff on flammables is great, Chaz, just great. But what you really want to tell folks about here are those corrosives.
Go ahead, caller.
As you know, corrosives come in many forms and many strengths, and you got to make sure your protective equipment is appropriate to the degree of danger.
True, quite true.
You mix a real strong acid there with one of them strong bases, and it ain't pretty, if you know what I'm saying. For example, in early decades of the Industrial Revolution...
Thank you, caller. You've made an important point that leads right to our next station break.
The Hazard Awareness Council would like to remind you that proper storage of corrosives is vital to a safe workplace. Store corrosives separately from other chemicals and keep the containers clearly marked. This has been a public service announcement from HAC, your Hazard Awareness Council.
I think they've summed it up well. Let's move on to reactives then. These are the materials that can change violently when combined with other materials or under certain conditions. For example, an oxidizer will add oxygen to a fire, making it more intense and harder to put out. Reactives can also give off gas or heat when combined with other materials. Use reactives with care and make sure they're stored safely away from materials that may cause a dangerous reaction. Okay, we have time for just one or two more calls. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, it's me again. I'm the new guy that called earlier, and I've learned a lot listening today, but, well, what if something goes wrong? What do I do? I don't want anyone to get hurt or anything to get damaged.
Hey, don't worry. It's all a matter of understanding the hazard and how to control it. First, make sure you know what you're dealing with. Generally, a small spill of a low-hazard material should be wiped up or swept up right away. Make sure you wear gloves to protect your skin. Talk to your supervisor about proper disposal of the spilled material. Looks like we have Lisa again on the line.
I just wanted the new guy to know that his company should have a documented emergency procedure for hazardous materials. The thing you want to make sure of is that you know what you're dealing with and that you protect yourself. You don't want to be the next victim. If someone you work with is hurt, make sure you have protective gear and follow your company's procedure.
Right again, Lisa. Cleanup of hazardous materials requires special training and special equipment, so don't attempt a large-scale cleanup on your own. Leave it to the people who are trained to do it. How are you feeling now, caller?
It's making a lot more sense now. I need to know the materials I'm working with. If I keep factor in mind, flammable and corrosive, toxic or reactive, I can keep in mind the type of material, the potential hazard, and the precautions I need to take.
That's right. And where do you go for basic information?
Read the label, check the MSDS, or talk to my supervisor.
Couldn't have summed it up better myself. In the next hour, we'll answer your questions about hazard awareness at home. You're listening to KHAZ, where to go to get in the know about hazard communication.